All right, and here we are with Mr. Kjetil, the legend himself. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Hey, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone who you are and why you're on this Necron tactical tier list with me?
Yeah, I have been called by others the number one Necron in Norway. I've been playing Necrons for most of ninth. Only really swapping to Guard when their new codex came out.
You meta chaser.
Um, well, it's one of my two armies that I've been collecting for a fair bit, and I don't really think I can be called a meta chaser if I played Necron since before the ninth
I
codex
was
came out.
just being a jerk. It's who I am. But anyway, guys, Mr. Kjetil here is actually probably, I would say, my main teacher. He's a incredible Warhammer player. He's one of the gurus for our team, Norway, for the WTC team. He's a true expert in the world of Necrons. Necrons are really different than a lot of the other armies that you're going to see these tactical tier list on. Because remember, when we do these tactical tier lists, we like to show the math behind how these units actually perform, and we like to talk about the tactics of how they interact with each other. It's not just ranking this unit good, this unit bad. But Necrons is going to be a pretty unique experience. I'm really excited to see how what Kjetil has to say today, because there is one grand strategy for how Necrons operate, and all of their units have to fit into that strategy. And that's kind of how we have to be ranking them. It's not just, oh, this unit does good damage, so it's good. Um, so I'm really really pumped up to get into this. How about you, sir?
I, I love this book. It feels so right.
Perfect. Well, with that, why don't you just get us started with what you call the plan?
All right, so with Necrons, every new iteration of a book, a codex, an index, whatever, there's always a change to how reanimation protocols work. Now, many people, when they first saw this index, was like, "Ah, no, we're less durable now. Oh, we won't be able to make it." And that is significantly wrong. With these new reanimation protocols, as long as we don't fully die, we will eventually grow back to full strength, because we will constantly be rolling every command phase. And if you have a Resorb, the enemy command phase, you will be regenerating at least D3 wounds. And those wounds, if you have models that have full wound count, you get back a model you've lost with those excess wounds. So it's basically like a currency you keep spending on your units to get them back to full strength. And there's significant ways to also manipulate and add to that, as we'll see as we get further along here.
Gross.
Necrons is also like one of the first indexes I've seen that properly really dig into the fact that leaders attach to units now. One of the first things that people said, or that Games Workshop themselves said, was that this is very much a leader focused index, and this is probably the one index where leaders matter a lot.
Yeah, probably. I would agree.
That is because of the detachment rule for the Awakened Dynasty. Because if you're being led by a character, you get +1 to hit. But more than that, the stratagems we have like a second clause to them, where they become better if the unit is being led by a character.
Now, before we dive in too deep, wouldn't it make sense that the obvious solution to that is to just always spam the precision stratagem so that we just kill your characters first?
That is one of the ways that you deal with Necrons.
But isn't there a
If
problem
if
with
you
that?
if you have good precision, then you can fairly easily start picking apart some of the key things that deal with Necrons. But there are ways to also deal with precision. Because one of the major clauses in precision is that the character has to be visible. And as long as you keep those characters behind walls and the rest of the unit outside the walls, they can use Epic Challenge. They can use as many snipers as they want. If they can't see you, they can't kill you.
Yeah, not to mention that you just have a 1 CP strategy to bring your dude back to life immediately.
That we do as well.
Okay, well, let's pop right on into here. So I think what it looks like is we're probably going to spend more time talking about the actual characters and their interactions with the units than we are the units themselves. Does that sound correct?
More or less for the majority of like the bigger units, because a lot of the Necron plan hinges on how you compose your core army, essentially.
Okay, and I know Mr. Shetzel here has given me a document that kind of talked about his thoughts for the army. Would you be comfortable if I share that with other people?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So I'll have that down in the links below, so you can kind of read through that as well, because it's going to help kind of organize things a little bit for you. But let's just jump right into it. I kind of organized this by characters. If you want me to bring one of these guys up in particular first, if you're looking at the stream right now, you just tell me who you want to go with first here.
Yeah, just the first thing to mention is that for Necrons, you can have 2 leaders in one unit, as long as one of them is a Cryptek and one of them is a Noble. So that is the typical combo you will see. And the first one I have on my list is Mr. Orkin the Diviner himself.
Mr. Orkin the Diviner himself. You have to tell me which one of these this is. Is it this guy right here?
He's the guy with like the circular head and hugging a staff.
The circle head hugging a staff. Oh, jeez. What a loser. This one right here?
Let me bring up the stream so that I can actually see it on my end as well.
Ah, I see him. Yeah, I got him. Yeah.
There we are. Yeah.
So, Mr. Orkin,
no, that's the Technomancer.
That's the Technomancer. Forgive me. That is a pretty circular head.
That is Orkin, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. He's got a circle head. All right. So where are we running him?
I'm running him all the way at the top. You will probably see him in every single list.
Why is that, sir?
At least if you are running warriors, you will see Orkin. Because this guy confers a 4-up invulnerable save to his units.
Hot dog. So you're telling me...
Which is...
you get a 20-man block of warriors with Crypto Thralls, all with a 4-up invul. And then they also get Resurrection Protocols.
That is correct. So that means that
to kill that unit?
To kill that unit, once we get into it, is if you can deal 24 wounds, that can, with the addition of the Crypto Thralls having their feel no pain, in one go, then you can get rid of them.
And that's assuming you make 0 saves.
That's assuming I make 0 saves, yeah.
All right, so in all reality, you're going to need an activation that's dealing 80 plus damage to do it.
Yes, more often than not, it will take an entire army's worth of shooting, as well as maybe some charging to get rid of those warriors.
That's hilarious. Okay, so Orkin comes in, he brings Crypto Thralls with him, right?
Every Cryptek brings Crypto Thralls with him.
What's his other option? He can go with the warriors. What's his other option?
The other option you usually see him with. So he can attach to 3 things: warriors, Lich Guard, and immortals. Immortals are kind of irrelevant here. We don't talk about them much. But another option you'll typically see is that if you don't run a warrior brick, you might run a squad of Lich Guard with war scythes, because they do not have the 4-up natively, as they would have with a shield. So Orkin can easily confer it to them. But typically where you'll see this guy is with the warriors. Now, if it was only the 4-up invul he benefited to the unit, I would not put him up an S tier.
Aha. Okay.
But he has a second thing.
Oh no, what is the second thing?
He has 2 attacks, strength 4. It's AP 2 or 3, I don't entirely remember. And it's damage D3 with devastating wounds. Doesn't sound too impressive. It's only 2 attacks, hitting on 3s.
Yep.
Hitting on 2s when the unit is being led by a character, which obviously is going to happen. However, once per game, the stars can align, and you will triple his attacks and strength.
Woo-hoo.
And every single successful wound becomes a critical wound.
So
which means that at strength 12, there aren't many things he won't be winning on 2s or 3s when it comes to things that will charge that Necron blob. So if you put him at a spot where he can pile in or consolidate into an enemy unit that charges your Necrons that you need to get out, you can have him align the stars and fairly decently do a lot of mortal wounds to whatever comes at you. Like, say you have like an incarn that appears, you can easily deal the wounds you need to deal to get those things away.
Disgusting. All right, so that's Orkin. We have him. He's a beast. He's going to make whatever unit he's in, like, never die. It's going to be either a big warrior block or a block of Lich Guard. What is next?
The natural complement to him would be the Overlord.
All right, and is that this guy I have right here? Or is that one of the special characters?
That would be a generic Overlord.
Perfect. So where are we dropping the
Do you have... that is Anarchy. There's a little bit of a delay. It's the one to the right of the Scorpec Lord.
This guy? Got him. Perfect. Where are we putting him? Is he an A or an S, you think?
He would go as a natural complement on S tier.
Perfect.
That is also Imhotep for what it's worth. But I think it's easier if we just do this in order in that case. Just so people don't get confused.
That is a completely fair thing.
So we can go straight to Anarchy because there's not too much to say.
Okay, let's just go straight into Anarchy then. We'll do it that way.
Yeah. Anarchy the Traveler, he used to be pretty nice. He used to give like +1 attack and stuff. Now he gives +1 to wound to the unit he attaches to. However, he can only attach to immortals, which is not that impressive these days.
And is it in melee and strength that he gives +1 to wound?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's pure +1 to wound.
Okay.
He has an extra ability that interacts with vehicles within 12. Generally, those will be knights that have good leadership, so they won't fail that much. A solid B tier, because you will see them picked at times.
Okay.
But they won't be a mainstay in most Necron armies. I don't entirely see a space for things like Anarchy and the Immortals.
One thing
Due to not particularly fitting in with the plan.
One thing, because you guys are going to hear Mr. Kjetils say this a bunch with the plan, one thing that I noticed as a non-Necron player, as I'm playing into Necrons, it's almost irrelevant how much damage Necrons are doing to me. Not saying that it's not important that they can't do damage, like they should be able to do damage, but it's almost irrelevant how much damage they do, because every single turn, no matter what, I will lose a few troops, and he will lose none. So if you have a unit that's dedicated to just giving a middling damage dealing unit, and like Immortals, just make them a little bit better at killing, it's not necessarily a bad thing, not a bad buff, but it just doesn't fit into the plan, like Mr. Kjetils said, which is why maybe we're putting him down in B, even though I know you might like him, and his rule isn't necessarily bad.
And one thing to consider as well is that the Immortals bring nothing unique in terms of damage output, right? Because it is anti-infantry focused. Now with +1 to wound, there's a fair few things that you wounded on 5s that are now 4s, and they do have a somewhat decent volume of fire, but it is not the firepower you need in order to make sure the plan succeeds.
Perfect. All right, so what's this next one?
The next one is the Technomancer.
This guy.
And he is a guy you will see a lot. He is another one of the S tiers that you will see in every single Necron list.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I've done the tiers is based on generally how often you will see them in lists, and if they are auto-includes. And you will always have at least one Technomancer, because you will always have at least 2 of the core bricks in your army.
And those are going to be your Lich Guard and your Warriors, right?
Yes, okay. Those are your mainstay bricks.
Mm-hmm.
The Technomancer typically will not be with the Warriors, because the 4-up invul from Orkin is more important generally.
Fair enough.
This guy will typically be with the Shield Lich Guards or Warscythe Lich Guards.
Okay.
I lean more towards Shields myself because of the invul. Because what this guy does is that he confers a 5-up feel no pain to the unit.
Oy.
Which means that your Lich Guard units will sit at a very comfortable -1 to win 4-up invul with a 5-up feel no pain.
That is and the Resurrect, that is a pretty good place to be. Sorry, so Technomancer
Indeed.
is pretty awesome.
So that's one of the significant things about Necron, right? The plan here is to be able to survive most incoming damage so that you can start to regenerate while on objectives.
Because why do you want to be on the objective?
Because then you score points and win.
And don't you also regenerate more?
That's for warrior specific only.
Warrior specifically, okay, cool. All right, now this guy, this looks like what is this, a Locust Lord here?
That is a Locust Lord.
Okay.
He on his own is. I am like a 50-50 on whether I include him or not.
Okay.
You will see him because he is fairly decent on his own. Typically, you'll see him with the regular Locust or the Mythic Exterminator heavy destroyers. He confers a buff to the unit that ensures that your critical hits will be on 5s as opposed to 6s.
That's nice.
That changes the efficiency of some units a certain amount. He is expensive, however. In a heavy destroyer unit, he is almost as expensive as the 3-man unit itself. Okay. But the way he changes the output in a regular Locust squad or an Mythic Exterminator squad is quite significant, so you will see him. But I would put him at a solid B for now, because he is not a thing you will see a lot, but you will see the units he attaches to far more.
Fair enough. And I think all these characters are taken in the context of the units they attach to, so a lot of times we might expand on these guys when we get to the units.
Another thing to think about with the destroyer-specific characters is that they are not nobles, so they can only ever be attached themselves. They do not let you have a crypt with them.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Next up.
Yep. What's this guy? This is a Chronomancer?
Yeah, go for it.
The Rubik Cube?
That is a Chronomancer, indeed.
All right. What's his role now?
He used to be the thing you saw a lot. He used to do what Orkin did on a targeted unit. Now he confers a -1 to hit and the ability to shoot and scoot.
Ooh.
But he can only attach to Warriors, Lich Guard, and Immortals.
So it's useless on Lich Guard then, basically.
More or less.
Mm-hmm.
On Warriors, you would rather have the Feel No Pain to support the plan.
Sure.
However, together with Anarchy, that unit suddenly becomes a little bit interesting. Because then you have a unit that can jump out of a ruin, shoot, and then move back. Which makes that unit a lot more survivable and makes it an interesting piece to pick. It's not necessarily something I would pick, but it is something that I would see a lot of people pick, and therefore he goes straight together with Anarchy in B tier, because they belong together.
Perfect. Peas in a pod. Now we have a guy who is terrorizing me every time I've played you. Not because he deals damage, but because he just makes it so I can never hold an objective against you. This is the Catacomb Command Barge.
That is correct.
And it's a total jerk. Why do I hate him, Kjetil?
He confers +1 objective control in an aura around.
To everything.
Now this guy, I had a little bit of trouble where to place. Because he is 150 points. And I don't entirely see exactly how important that +1 OC is. What he does is that he has a res orb in an aura for infantry and mounted units specifically. So it won't help your vehicles.
Yep.
The aura of +1 OC really helps the plan, that is to sit on objectives. However, if you are stringing out your warriors, I am not sure if that +1 OC affects things enough so that a single warrior on an enemy objective will be impactful enough. And he does have fairly little impact by himself. His output is not great. It's a single Gauss cannon and a Lord's Blade. So I've put him at the top of B tier because he will see play, but it's difficult to find a solid purpose for him in the more efficient list.
Fair enough. And guys, if you disagree or you have any thoughts, please put them down in the comments because we will absolutely be answering any questions or comments that you have because Mr. Kjetil is awesome and wants to help everyone here get better at Necrons. And I want to help people get better at playing against Necrons. So we got any questions you have, just don't be afraid to type them down. All right, what's this next guy?
That is poor old Trazen the Infinite.
So he's amazing now, correct?
Well, the thing about Trazen the Infinite and Orkin the Diviner is that they have a very good buddy cop-esque novel where they constantly try to foil each other's plans. So when things are going good for Orkin, things are going bad for Trazen.
So basically what you're telling me is Trazen's a dumpster fire.
He grants sticky objectives, which is fine. You won't be leaving objectives as Necrons.
Right.
Typically. I guess he's a noble, that's a good thing. And if you want to, you can kill your other character so he can teleport to other units.
Okay.
That's a thing.
Awesome.
I don't see why you bring Trazen. I genuinely don't.
Well, maybe you're a Necron and you really hate everyone for going through the transference, so you're just trying to punish other Necrons, and you just wanted to do that on the tabletop, right?
Then I probably would be playing a self-destructing AdMech army, because you can play an AdMech army that kills itself before the game begins.
All right, so Mr. Trazen has an amazing book. He's got a terrible stat line for the game.
Yes.
What's this next dude?
Solidly on the last. On D tier.
So bad.
Now this guy also has a fun little novella. He is the insane Nemesor Zandrek. Insane in the literal sense.
Insane in the membrane.
I would put him at an A tier because you will see him a lot, but he doesn't do that much himself.
Okay, why do you see
him? And one of the reasons you will see him a lot is because I think over time you will see a lot of armies placing an emphasis on having the ability of what we call Agents of Vect, which is the old buff that Drukhari brought that makes any stratagem you use cost 1 more CP That means that 2 CP stratagems go to 3, which makes them very prohibitive to use. It makes abilities that let you use strats for 0 CP now become 1 CP, because it's all cumulative when it actually has a number on it. You always add stuff to the end.
Brutal.
And that can mess with a lot of armies' plans. That can mess with other Necrons' plans, for example. He also brings random buffs that are all good to have on Shield Lich Guard. The only downside to Nemesis Sandrak is that while he dabs on his opponent, he does not bring a Res Orb.
And the Res Orb is what allows you to initiate your protocols, right?
That is what lets you use Resurrection Protocols in the opponent's command phase as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so he's solidly A. But if he had that Res Orb, he'd probably be even better.
If he had the Res Orb, I would never not bring him.
Got it. Now we have a guy who I have always loved, but people have argued with me. When I was playing GSC and I was running my Kellermorphs, I was always jealous of the Gloctopus himself. But people argued with me, and now I don't think people argue anymore because the Gloctopus is alive and well. Am I correct in saying that?
He is very much alive and well. He is one of the best sources to the new rule that we see in 10th, which is Lone Operator.
Mm-hmm.
And he is also a fairly cheap Lone Operator.
Mm-hmm.
He maintains the character keyword, which means that he is an excellent holder of one of the more important enhancements in the Necron book, the Sovereign Coronal.
Boy.
Which is an 6-inch aura that confers being led by a character.
Ugh.
Which means that all our single model vehicles and such, even the Seraptic Heavy Construct, now counts as being led by a character.
Nice.
So him being a lone operator, which means that he can't be targeted outside of 12, cheap with a, okay size base, he's small and easy to fit around in the rest of your army, and he confers a large buff around him. So assuming you will bring Doomsday Arcs, which you presumably will, or if you bring Leaderless Destroyers, or the Seraptech, then you will also bring a Hexmark.
And I think there's one other thing in there that we missed. It was, I know you like to start him inside your Ghost Arc. So the Ghost Arc can actually start.
Yes, because he is an infantry character, and the Ghost Arc needs something within it as a dedicated transport to not die on turn 1. He is probably one of the better units to do that if you bring warriors, because you don't want to lose that Ghost Arc.
And then he also provides a role, doesn't he, where it's like if he's within 3 inches of a unit that gets shot, he gets to shoot for free. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Oh.
He does not have too much of an impressive output on his own. Mm-hmm. He has 6 shots with a pistol that has precision, strength 6, AP 2, damage 1. Not that impressive. But if you bring, let's say you try to bring a 10-man Dire Invader squad with Vazerman to shoot at a warrior blob. And if you now consider the fact that the Dark Elder army does not want to use its D cannons and fate dice immediately to try and whittle down warrior blob, thankfully the Wraith Knight will see some hits after this video is out. So I will not take that into consideration for any of these purposes right now. Every time a unit within 3 of the Hexmark gets shot at, any Necron unit, he can shoot. And he doesn't have to shoot at the unit that shot.
Ooh.
So if you bring, let's say a Neophyte squad close to the warriors and you shoot other things, this guy will start jumping down the Neophyte squad. He will start picking off those units that have come to threaten the objective. So while you may only have 3 warriors on the objective, with a total of 6 OC, if you have 10 models with OC1, this guy might start picking off 4 or 5 models over the course of the shooting phase in that unit. and all of a sudden you did not steal the objective because you tried to shoot the warriors.
And I think one of the important things there is he's dealing all of that damage in your opponent's shooting phase, which is
Exactly.
brutal. So that's to me, it sounds like that is the definition of an A tier character. He's a really good character, but he doesn't seem necessary for your game plan at all.
No, he is a bonus. He is a guy that you put in as a piece in the cog to make other things work.
Right. Cool. Okay.
This next guy, he hurts my soul.
Oh no, I don't like it when things hurt your soul.
Because before the design commentary came out, that said that you could only ever have 2 leaders in a unit. You could have a very interesting unit with Nemesis Sandrak, this guy, and a Technomancer. He is Vargard Oberyn, and he is Nemesis Sandrak's bodyguard.
Ah.
And he grants fight first. And fight first in 10th edition is an extremely important defensive bonus. Even it works sort of similar to how fight last worked in the last edition, but it is better because it definitely makes sure that this unit activates before the entire rest of the opponent's army.
That's right, because remember, guys, the way the fight phases work now is you alternate in the fight's first phase, and then you alternate in the fight's normal phase. There is no fight's last phase. However, the non-active player always starts each phase. So if you charge and you get fights first because you're charging someone, but they also have fights first, your opponent will fight you before you get to fight with your charging unit. Okay. But we can't take them because of that limitation, is that right? Because now you can only have two characters?
You can, but you want a Cryptek, because that also lets you bring Crypto Thralls. Yeah. And if you bring a Cryptek, you typically bring the Technomancer, which is a Feel No Pain.
And Crypto Thralls
and that helps with the plan. And that helps with the plan more than fight first.
I was at Kjetils' home for I'm going to interject for a second. I was at Kjetils' home, and we were having a Warhammer boot camp weekend, and I went to sleep. And in the guest room, first off, Kjetils' home is amazing, and there's just Warhammer everywhere. But in the guest room, there was just like 2 little Crypto Thralls just sitting right there, right after I got traumatized by Crypto Thralls never dying to an ungodly amount of damage I put into the unit. And I may have had nightmares from those guys sitting on my pillow. I don't know if you intentionally put them there or not, but they tortured they haunt me. All right, so that's over.
I have a lot of Crypto Thralls from the Indominus box. He is decidedly a C tier. Okay. He is decidedly a C tier because
he's that third character.
While he has good rules in and of himself, he's not a noble, so you won't bring him alone.
Yeah, okay.
If you could bring Oberyn Cryptek, you would see him. Right. But as he is right now, he is simply a good character that doesn't have a place to go.
Fair enough. Now this next guy kind of looks like a Harlequin, but I don't think it's a Harlequin.
He is. That is one of the coolest Cryptek models GW have made. That has never had good rules. Why, GW? Why? Why can't you give him something interesting to do? -1 leadership and triggering battle shock is not a good thing to spend that much points on.
What's it called?
It's a psychomancer.
A psychomancer.
He manipulates your fears.
That is really cool sounding and really cool looking, but it sounds pretty bad.
Yeah, it is. Decidedly D tier, probably behind Trazen, because at least Trazen is a noble.
Gotcha. All right, and then the following man. This one is the Plasmancer, right?
That is correct. The one that came with the Indominus box that every Necron player has at least 3 of.
What does he do?
And will probably not use. He does the same as the Locust Lord in that he confers critical hits on 5s.
Cool.
Now, the problem here is that he can't be used with another Cryptek, meaning that in, for example, the Anarchy squad, critical hits on 5s, meaning you have like exploding 5s Tesla guns that wound orcs on 3s.
That's cool.
Sounds interesting. Don't necessarily see why you would need it over the Chronomancer's shooting scoots.
Right. Sure.
Because the output doesn't that significantly change. It is a fairly chunky change of output. But because you can't combine him with other cryptex, and he's only really like super interesting in the warrior squad, because with the warrior squad you auto wound on 5s with the Ghost Reapers.
That's cool.
So if you have like this guy with Illuminous Zerus, like they become fairly damaging, even against the larger things like a Knight Tyrant or something like that. But then you aren't as durable, and you'll fail at the plan.
Right, because the plan
so this guy,
is don't die.
The plan is sit on objectives, bully the opponent on primary, don't die.
Right, and he doesn't fit the plan.
He doesn't fit in the plan. Decidedly a C tier. You'll probably see Oberyn more than you'll see a Plasmancer.
All right. So we are actually we were like over halfway through with the characters, and once we get through the characters, it actually does pick up speed just a little bit. But what is this guy here?
That guy is the aforementioned Illuminous Zerus.
Aha.
This guy is very interesting.
Okay.
He's expensive. He looks like a Primarch, but he has the infantry keyword, so suck it, Gilliman. If you bring 2 warrior squads and an immortal squad, you will also bring Illuminous Zerus. He has a build that he fits into.
Okay.
And he has a Primarch style lone operator, which means that within 3 he becomes lone operator.
Cool.
He has a built-in Feel No Pain on the 4-up. And he significantly augments battle line units, which are the warriors and the immortals. He gives them Armor of Contempt, and he gives them +1 AP.
Oh.
So those AP1 guns become AP2 now.
Okay. And then suddenly you don't necessarily need the invuln from Orkin because Armor of Contempt is freaking super powerful.
Exactly. I still think I would.
Okay,
I still think I would bring Orkin in addition.
Yep.
But that means that a lot of those AP1 guns are suddenly very irrelevant to shoot into the warriors.
Oh, and since they're AP1, you can. Yeah, okay, that's gross. I like it.
Yeah. So if you have 2 warrior squads, then one has Orkin. And one will always be babysit by this guy, even though the buff will probably reach both of them because of how you snake warriors around the table.
Okay. Or where do you like him? Because that all sounds very AE to me.
The price and the build limitation means that he's either top of C or bottom of B.
Oh,
because
okay.
because you only bring him with that build because he is like 220 points ish.
Oh, he's 220 points.
Yes. So okay. Top of C, bottom of B.
220 points. All right. So here's my argument why I think that sounds like a top of C to me is you have so many other options of how to build the plan out really, really well that you don't need to spend 220 points, even though it is decidedly good.
Yeah, he makes the plan better, but it is not necessary.
Yeah.
If you do the specific build, you can include them. If you do a very specific build where you have 2 or more battle line units, this is a shoo-in. But you will probably see 3 Lich Guard units before you see 2 warrior units.
Gotcha. We had a comment here from Mr. Chris Hogan. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. He says that he loves the formats of these tier lists. He loves listening to the experts, like the super wise Mr. Kjetils here. And he wants Black Templars next. Well, buddy, Black Templars will be occurring. I don't know if I can make that one next, but it will absolutely be coming up. I promise. So thanks so much for the comment. All right, so then we're moving on to this little fella. He looks like a. Is this the normal Overlord?
That is a regular Lord. Yeah, the standard noble of the court.
Okay.
He is a cheapo. He is only 65 points.
Cool.
He has the Lord's Blade.
Mm-hmm.
They have wounds at damage 2 and good AP, always useful. And he has a Res Orb.
Oh, Raspberries.
He is a cheapo that you can attach to Lich Guard. Now, you will always look at attaching the Overlord first.
Okay.
But if you want to save 20 points, you bring the Overlord.
Okay.
And you will see them in most lists. So decidedly A tier.
Very cool. So it's just that he's that cheap buffing character that's going to get you the +1 to hit, it's going to get you the -1 to wound, and he has that Res Orb, that's really what you need. So the upgrade,
Noble with a scythe, he has a Res Orb.
so the upgrade for the Overlord is really just like you have the 20 points, you might as well do the upgrade because this guy does all the jobs by himself.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and then the guy following him.
That is good old Imhotep the Stormlord.
Imhotep.
I want him to be good, but his ability is either, oh my god, GW, why do you give this to a model, or irrelevant. And in this iteration, it's leaning to the irrelevant side.
Okay, what is it?
I had a game against LR where I really, really wanted it to do the last wound of an Incarn in my lines when I had to bring it down in turn 5.
Okay.
But that's been the only time out of like 20 games where I felt like, oh, that Imhotep ability, that would be really nice right now. His damage output is probably on the higher end of all the lords.
Mm-hmm.
All the nobles, Imhotep probably has the most damage.
Okay.
Don't really need it, because it's tied to a guy that's walking with slow warriors or Lich Guard.
Gotcha.
He grants you extra CP a turn.
That's cool.
Could be very, very useful, but I feel like that's a bonus at times. It's not a necessity.
Okay.
He's nice. You'll see him in lists. I would probably take a regular Lord before I take Imhotep at 110 or 15. So solid like mid B tier, I think.
So he's good. He has his uses, but it's just a simple case of what we've seen in our other tier lists, where you have good units that you'll just never take because other units do the job more efficiently. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Cool. This is the Royal Warden, I think.
That is the Royal Warden.
Nice.
I don't see a use for him at all.
What does he do in this edition?
I don't even remember. He's that insignificant.
Okay, I see.
He's down at D tier.
Oh, D tier.
He is. Okay. Yeah, he is not a noble. He has a forgettable ability. I haven't looked at him at all after like I did an overpass on him. I even forgot to put him in my notes, I think.
Okay, so he's not giving that fall back and shoot anymore.
No, if he did, I would definitely consider him.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, then this is going to be the Scorpec Lord. Now, this one might hurt some people's feelings because I read your notes and it actually made a lot of sense to me, especially in the context of the plan which we're discussing. So why don't we talk about the Scorpec Lord, because it actually did look like he dealt some pretty decent damage and he looks fun, but
the Scorpec Lord hurts my soul because he is one of the coolest models Games Workshop have put out.
Mm-hmm.
And Necrons kind of needed like a damagey infantry type character.
Yep.
But he doesn't do that much more than a regular Overlord when it comes to pure output. On his own, he has Mortals on the Charge. He has okay melee attacks, like he has his Flensing Claw to clear out chaff.
Mm-hmm.
He has the big Hyperphase Thresher. Strength 10, AP 3, damage 3. Okay, only like 4 attacks though. That's not impressive. There are far more damaging characters out there.
No, we'll be hitting on 2s, and because he's going to be attached to the Scorpex, they'll ignore the any hit modifiers, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Attaching to Scorpex is what it does. He grants lethal hits to the Scorpex, which on its own sounds nice, auto-wounding on 6s. He does not confer criticals on 5s, as the Locust does. But when you have Scorpex that can give themselves devastating wounds, I am not sure that you want to give them lethals as well.
Okay.
Because lethals are critical hits. They are not critical wounds.
Right.
So they won't be triggering devastating. So he's sort of a counterintuitive add to the Scorpex.
Okay.
The Moth sort of weighs it up in that they'll be hitting on 2s with the Scorpic Lord with him. But he's a melee character that has Necron tier melee.
See. Okay.
And melee isn't a place where Necron do their damage anymore, sadly. They used to be really good, now they are somewhat slow, and they are not durable. And to do the plan, we need durable.
Gotcha.
Also, the combo is expensive. Scorpex are now 220 points for 6. This guy is another 130 something on top of that.
So if you bring,
if you bring Scorpex,
is he a reasonable target for the? Yeah, sorry.
No, because then you have 9-inch charges, and 9-inch charges are bad.
Yep.
If you ever count on your melee dudes making 9-inch charges that aren't even rerollable, you need to seriously reconsider what you're doing. 9-inch charges are not the way to deliver melee.
27% chance success rate, guys. 27%. That's
yeah.
You're not unlucky if you fail a 9-inch charge.
if it let you rapid ingress, I see a value, but Veil of Darkness is pick up a unit, place it down.
Does he make the C tier cut, or is he stuck down?
He makes bottom of C.
Cool.
Because if you bring Scorpex, you bring this guy. He is valuable to the Scorpex. Scorpex are good but expensive, but they die. So it's like. Then
we've got. I think this is the last character we have. What is this guy?
That is the regular Overlord.
That's the regular Overlord. Okay.
You will always see at least one, because there will always go at least one with your warriors.
Right, and what makes him better than the normal Lord?
He has an ability called My Will Be Done. And just like a Space Marine Captain, it lets you use a stratagem for free, even if you've already used it on another unit. That means that he enables your warriors to always trigger Undying Legion to regenerate after losing models.
I know exactly where he goes.
He also has a Resorb, or rather you will take him with a Resorb. You can't take him without. You will never take him without, because the Tachyon Arrow is dumb.
Well, no, it's cool. It's not good. But it is cool. It's not dumb. Come on.
A one-shot weapon on par with a last cannon is dumb. Just bring a last cannon instead.
Fair enough.
But he is S tier.
Yeah.
He is hard to kill. He has a 4-up invul. He has half damage. Snipers do damage one to him. He has 6 wounds. He's in a unit with Technomancers giving him Feel No Pains or Orkin. He will not die easily.
Yep.
You can always resurrect him because of the My Will Be Done. He is S tier. You will see him. You will see multiple of them, depending on points.
Now, I know for Custodes, when we have our user stratagem for 0 CP, even if it's already been used, there's a caveat on it that says only one model with that ability can use it per battle round. Is that true for the Overlord as well?
That is correct.
Okay, so only one of them can do it per battle round. You can't have every single one of them giving you a free. Okay.
But it does let you always have it.
Cool. Yep. Nice.
Right, so if you spend CP elsewhere, if you spend it on triggering on the Lich Guards first, then you can also spend it on the Warriors.
Very, very important. Because the Warriors, as you guys will see when we get to them, will be regenerating 4d3 plus 7 when they use it. Let's go. So I think that concludes all of our characters. So now we're gonna run through the troops choices, or the battle line troops choices. Then we'll hit like all of our fast attack and our satanic
Oh,
shards, and we'll finish up with some vehicles.
Jonathan, I wish Flayed ones were battle line. I wish Flayed
Oh,
one were battle line.
oh, they're not though. Okay, my mistake there.
They are not. Their melee output is about as it was before, in an edition where melee isn't that impactful anymore. They have difficulty getting to where they are. They're cheap-ish. They are 5-man units on like 25 or 28 millimeter bases. They can deep strike. They have a play for objectives if you want them. You won't see a lot of them top of C tier.
Fair enough. That's what that sounded like to me. Now this is an immortal right here, and there's a couple different models for different immortals. We'll just talk about all the variants of the guns, just with the one immortal unit here.
Yes. So you have the Gauss destruction. I never remember what kind of Gauss it is. It's the mid-tier Gauss gun. It has a fair amount of shots. It has lethal hits. It has decent AP. If you bring Illuminous Zerus, it has better AP. If you bring Illuminous Zerus and a Chronomancer and Anarchy with Gauss, this is an okay unit. The bottom of B tier is probably where I would place it, simply because that combo with Anarchy and the Chronomancer means you might actually see one unit being brought in your armies. If that is the style you go for, with like 40 warriors and 10 immortals. They only have 1 wound, they're a 3-up save, their toughness 5, so it's okay. I feel like they could have really gotten that second wound to make them more distinguished from warriors, even if it made them a little bit more expensive to have that distinction. But I don't see why you would bring immortals over warriors as your first pick in the plan.
All right. Then this is going to be, I believe, a heavy destroyer.
That is the Locust Heavy Destroyer, indeed.
Ooh. Now I know you like these guys with the not super heavy gun, right?
I like them with both.
Okay.
They are surprisingly good value into whatever dedicated target they go for. Okay. It's strength 14, AP 4, damage 6 guns. It's flat 6.
Oh, so good. So good.
These guys bring the Menhirs of the Silent King on themselves for 40-something points.
Oh,
it's like 45.
Awesome.
Yeah. These are 135 for 3. That's the same point as the Locust Lord himself, roughly. I bring these. I at least bring one of these. I have looked at a list where I bring 3 of these.
Okay.
2 with the Destructor and 1 with the Enmitic Exterminator. Now, what the Enmitic Exterminator is that it's rapid fire 6, I believe. And it has 6 shots.
Ooh.
With the Lord, they'll be hitting on 2s. With sustained hits 1. So they'll also be exploding on 5s with the Lord. Right. That is an obscene amount of shots at decent AP and decent strength. Only damage 1, of course. But if you also give them reroll to wound, there is nothing in this game that they won't give some serious chunks to.
And what gives them reroll to wound?
There is a stratagem called Protocol of the Eternal Conqueror that you can use on any Necron that gives you full reroll to wounds if you're being led by a character, or full reroll to wounds if you're within half range if you're not.
Got it.
And since they have rapid, they do a significant chunk.
Nice.
So without the Locust Lord, they combo really well with the Sovereign Corona, which we will always see. Well, almost always see. There are some builds you do that don't actually have single model units, so you don't need it. These are decidedly A tier. They are really good at whatever you want them to do.
Yep.
There are only 3 in a unit, but that is 12 wounds at toughness 6 and a 3-up, usually with cover, that you will need to chunk through before they start reanimating.
Nice, man. Well, that sounds like a decidedly A tier unit. Okay, then we have Scarabs. How the mighty have fallen. So the Scarabs seem to be nowhere near as useful as they were in the original. or I'm sorry, a ninth edition,
Ev-
not the original. But they still seem like they may have a little bit of a place. What are your thoughts?
every Necron player has buckets of these because they are easy to convert. They come with warriors. You get a bunch with Indominus, and most Necron players that
Hmm.
I know have at least 3 copies of the Necron Indominus version. They are now OC0.
Well,
They can't hold primary. They can
unless
with the command
there
barge.
we go.
They can with the command barge, but typically they don't have the numbers anymore to string out in order to reach the command
Yeah.
barge because they are limited to 6 per unit. That means that they will never have to deal with coherency shenanigans because that starts
Cool.
at 7 now. But if I could bring 9, I would be comfortable. If I could pay 120 points for 9 instead of 80 for 6, I would consider them a lot more.
Yeah, it just seems like they got hit by the movement nerfs that hit all flyers and double whammy on the swarms because now swarms can't move through ruins anymore.
Yeah, that's the worst part of it. They are swarms. They are
Yeah.
not beasts.
Well, because men can climb through windows, but bugs they'll never find a way through windows or cracks in walls.
Yeah, they're not as fast. They're not as survivable as they used to be. They're also zero, so they can't sit and hold an objective on the side.
Yeah.
And there's actually a new unit that fills the old Scarab role a lot better, actually. That many people don't think about. That is actually cheaper than Scarabs if you use them for it. So I would skip these. They have their uses for tactical mission play. If you've used other data sheet and you need like a 3-man unit to do things, like bottom of C tier is probably where I place the Scarabs. I don't see much use for them.
Fair enough. Now, this next unit, I'm going to go ahead and answer the question because these things haunt me. They haunt me, Kjetil.
Go
Uh,
for it, Jonathan.
these
Why are the Crypto Trolls terrible?
because they're full of bullshit. Forgive my language on YouTube, but I hate these crypto thralls. They go right up to the top. These boys have a 3-up armor save. They have 2 wounds each and a 4-up Feel No Pain. Now, they also, when you attach them to the Cryptek who's going to be with the Lich Guard, they are benefiting from the -1 to wound on top of that. They are so unkillable that it's not even funny, and they constantly regenerate because of resurrection protocols. They add so much survivability to a unit. It's absolutely insane. Um, when just by
Yeah, because
adding these 2 models, it probably increases the durability of the unit as if you had almost double the amount of models in the unit. It's that crazy.
yeah, it definitely adds like 50% more survivability to a warrior squad alone.
Yeah.
And the important distinction to keep in mind here is this is not a leader that attaches to a unit. This is a unit that you bring along as a bodyguard to the Cryptek that then integrates into the bodyguard unit. It doesn't use the attached unit rules as it is. They become part of the unit, and that is why you can resurrect them alongside the warriors.
Which is just horrible. But yeah, these murder buckets are nightmares, and they're just amazing, and they fit the plan perfectly. You're always going to take as
And
many as you possibly can.
and in a Lich Guard unit, they become interesting because while I expect this to have an FAQ or a balance change, because it seems weird, as the rules stand right now, as the time of recording this or live streaming this, they confer a 3-up fight on death to their unit.
Yeah, that's another thing. Which I hope I agree with you. I actually do hope that gets FAQ'd because that is a little much. But
I
it
I
seems to
don't
be
think
true.
it is as impactful on Lich Guard as their output isn't, oppressive. But it's just that little bit extra that I don't think they need. I forgot that it was a thing when we played. And if it had, it wouldn't have changed anything necessarily, because warriors fighting on death is like, okay.
I think it actually probably would have changed quite a bit because that's giving your Lich Guard another custodian that they kill. each turn, and then they resurrect and
Oh,
do it again.
that
I
is
actually
a
think
fair
it would have
point, isn't
completely
it?
changed the game, and I don't think I would have had a chance at that point, to be honest with you. I think that's a huge dramatic difference. So that's something I do hope gets FAQ'd because that is super powerful when the Lich Guard who already hit pretty hard, especially if they're running War Slice, are resurrecting and then doing it again when they die next turn. That's pretty tough. But yeah, those
Yeah,
things
that
are amazing. They're S tier.
yeah. They those the units currently in S tier combined with Warriors and Lich Guard, they are the plan.
Yep, absolutely. That's the entire plan. All right, then we have death marks. Death marks are historically bad, but in this edition where you have to kill leaders, do they have any play?
They do. They're also fairly okay for objectives. There are 65 points and they have native deep strike.
Oh, cool.
So I have used them in some lists as 5-man units
Hmm.
that actually deep strike and do objectives.
Okay.
And after they've done that, they sit and be very annoying with, damage 2 snipers. The output is nothing to write home about. Putting some pressure on far tiers, guard characters and stuff like that, actually kind of nice. I don't think you'll see much use of them. They sort of belong in that they need like that little bit extra to jump into B tier, but they're like in a C tier alongside the flayed ones. They have that kind of use.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like there might be some tech pieces that you bring them depending on how like metas shift and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I have a hard time seeing me bring them as it currently stands because they don't fit in the plan. They are extras. And when it comes to the plan and extras, there are other units that I would consider before them.
So this next unit here is the plan. Like this is the plan. This is a unkillable brick that is
Yeah.
it won't die. So if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Shuttle, would you just go through the whole combo? Like, well, let's go ahead
Okay.
and throw the reanimator
Oh,
down. Let's do the whole combo right now. Let's do it all at once for people.
all right. So let's start with the warriors because they're in a place where I don't think you would expect it. The Lich Guards are the one that are below the Void Dragon currently, by the way. What you brought up are
Oh, Praetorian, sir.
the Triarch Praetorians, yeah. But
Thanks.
the warriors, they're expensive. They're now 240 points for 20. Their output isn't special. Their output is okay, but it's not special. I actually placed them at an A tier on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the combination of the characters and everything that makes that entire combo become an S tier. That is why the characters are S tier, but the warriors themselves are in top of A.
So I'm gonna go ahead and
Because
just drop them in the S tier just to make this all like work together, if that's okay with you.
then you can put them this. Yeah,
Yeah, just
that's perfectly fine.
cool.
Because you will see these a lot, but I have considered not bringing them because that unit is 24 models strong, which means that anything that has blast will get 4 extra shots at you. That means that things like Desolators might end up having like 100 shots coming at your unit. That is something that can actually pick up that warrior squad.
Mm-hmm.
You will string these from your home objective to the center objective. And then you will put your characters off to the side in a ruin, typically. And this unit will not die. It'll shrink, it'll grow, it'll shrink, it'll grow, but it will always block out and control that center objective. Because their thing is that they have enhanced reanimation protocols. They will resurrect D6 in addition or like instead of D3. If they're on objectives, that becomes more consistent with D3 plus 3. That means that if you have a Ghost Arc on your objective and a Reanimator on your home objective, and these guys string out from the home objective to the center objective, which you can because you're 20 dudes, every time you lose a model in any phase from an attack, that's important, it's from an attack, then you will resurrect at least 2d3 plus 3, because the Canoptech Reanimator gives you an additional d3 on that. That means that if you lose typically both Crypto Thralls and 3 Warriors, that's the typical limit I have for when I pop either the Stratagem that does the same as the Ghost Arc, or the Ghost Arc itself. Typically, I'll always do the Ghost Arc first. That is 2 Crypto Thralls plus 3 Warriors. That's 7 models. That's about what you get back every time you do a reanimation. 7 wounds. That is both Crypto Thralls, always the Crypto Thralls first, and then the 3 Warriors. And if you do that, and if you keep that break point in mind for triggering reanimation, you will never lose this unit. If you go down to 1 single model of Warriors, then by your opponent's next turn, they will almost be back to full strength.
So what is the total? Like, how do we get to the 4d3 plus 7?
So when you lose models, you can trigger the Ghost Arc, and you can trigger Protocol of the Undying Legion. Both of them trigger reanimation protocols on the unit they're used to, and both of them trigger on the same thing. That means that for every phase, you have d3 plus 3 from the Ghost Arc, and every shooting and fight phase, you have another d3 plus 4, because the Undying Legion gives you plus 1. And that means that if you were to lose a significant chunk of your Warriors in one go, say you have Desolators shooting at them, and you have like 5 Warriors left, you can now pop both the Stratagem and the Ghost Arc, and you will then have 4d3 plus 7, because the Reanimator adds a d3 to every single activation.
And since you have both activations, that's plus 2d3, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So you get a d3 from the Arc activation and a d3 from the Reanimator activation.
And you get to do that in your command phase and my command phase.
No, that is not in the command phase. That is only when you lose a model.
That's when you lose it.
That is, so that's in your shooting phase, Jonathan.
That's in my shooting phase where you regain 43 plus 7 models. Got it. Okay.
Or fight phase.
Or fight phase.
Now, in addition to that, every command phase, you'll get another 2d3 plus 3. And then in your command phase, after I've done my stuff, that's another 2d3 plus 3.
Right.
And then if you decide to overwatch that unit, in my movement phase, that's another 2d3 plus 3.
So essentially, it can't die.
It takes a lot to kill this unit. It takes a significant investment. There are units that can do it. Deathwatch kill teams can do it. So a Deathwatch army can, like many of the top tier meta armies, can kill this unit. But that's a significant investment. And if you build your army around this so that you can start harassing and start going ahead on the war of attrition, then by turn 3, they might not have enough units that can kill this unit, which means that you will run away with primary points. And primary points is the big decider in 10th. Because everyone can score like 30 secondaries, but not everyone can score the full 50 primary.
And I do think it's really important to note that with this blob, your most armies actually can't deal with it. Maybe your top tier can, but it's going to take 3 units of Desolators with Oath of the Moment, or it's going to take your Wraith Knights to do it. If you're not one of those armies and maybe you're not the Deathwatch, no one else can really do it. Like I'd say 80% of the armies can never deal with it, so they're just going to have to ignore this blob, which just basically guarantees you. But I think that's enough on the Warriors. The Warriors are unkillable. They're amazing, and I hate them with a passion. And then we'll talk about the Immortals?
Lich Guard are next.
Lich Guard, sorry, not Immortals, Lich Guard.
So the Lich Guard don't reanimate as well as Warriors. But they don't die in the first place.
Right.
They are S tier for the same-ish reason. They don't have bonus to reanimation, so they will only ever reanimate D3 and D3 plus 1 when you use the stratagem. They don't get the benefit of the Ghost Arc. That's a warrior perk. But they are -1 to wound when being led by a noble, and they will be led by a noble. And they are always -1 to wound, which means that whatever you have at strength 4 that you would put into infantry now wounds these guys on 6s. That means that Lich Guard don't die to 30 Desolators.
Right.
So when you're playing Marines with 30 Desolators, hopefully that won't be a thing by 7 days after this is made. You put the Lich Guards on the center objective and they don't die. And the Marines don't have a good answer to that other than putting super cracks into them. But if they put super cracks into them, you can see them, which means that you pump your Doomsday Arcs into them.
Yep, absolutely.
Lich Guards are the answer to a lot of the plagues that the warriors have. So you will always have both if you have one of them.
And that 5 up Feel No Pain on top of it all. And now suddenly they're fighting on 3 ups for deaths because you're going to have the Crypto Thralls with them. It's a disgusting nightmare unit. That's a real challenge.
Yeah, and they are 30 attacks with power swords that can become strength 7, AP 4 in melee.
That slaps. AP 4 in melee.
If Nemesis or Xandrek is with them, they will either have lethal hits, sustained hits, or devastating wounds.
Yep.
That's a random buff you can't pick. Whatever you get, that's a benefit.
Oof, but it's freaking brutal. Then these next ones. What are these called again? These are the Praetorians?
They are Triarch Praetorians.
Yes.
I looked at using them at the end of 9th because they were fast, they had fly, and they had war scythe output.
Mm-hmm.
Now they retained fly, I guess, but they're not particularly fast, and they don't have a particularly decent output. They are a unit that costs points and don't contribute. So Scarab tier, maybe? I want to be proven wrong because I think they're cool. But the floaty boys, they don't have that much of a room.
And one thing I think for people who are watching this to remember is that doesn't necessarily mean the unit on its own is terrible. It's just it doesn't fit what the Necrons army is trying to do.
Yeah, there's nothing that attaches to this or buffs this. There's no synergies. They're a good unit on their own. But they don't interact with the Silent King anymore.
Right.
Like, there's no specific things for Triarch Praetorians that they get from the Silent King. So there's no point in bringing them over anything else, really.
All right. Next up, I think we have a Doomsday Arc.
First is the Ghost Arc.
That's the Ghost Arc, right? That's where the people are. So that fits really well into the Warrior Squad.
Yeah, if you bring Warriors, you do bring a Ghost Arc.
So it's just part of the combo.
Put them... Yeah, wherever the Warriors go, the Ghost Arc goes.
Fair enough.
Because they trigger reanimations. So if you put the Warriors up in S, they go alongside the Warriors in S. And
that is simply because of their combo with the Warriors. So suddenly you don't bring Warriors, you're not bringing Ghost Arc, and they both disappear.
Yeah, that's why I put them both in A tier in my considerations. Because I think you'll see Lich Guards before you see Warriors. Depending on what else is in the meta, of course.
Fair enough. Now we have Mr. Doomsday Arc, who did get a nice little glow up.
Indeed. The Doomsday Arc has always been the sad panda of the Necron vehicles. Because it used to be you either do like 50 damage or you do 1 damage.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way in between. It's not super cheap anymore. It used to be like 160, now it's up to 185. I think that's probably reasonable. But they add something to your army that really helps the plan. They are solid, durable backfield shooting that has very good sidearms to kill chaff that comes near it, like, gargoyles deep striking in or stuff like that, right? Fairly durable. Toughness 9, 3 up save, 14 wounds, 4 up invul. It has reanimation protocol, so whatever it loses, it'll get back 2d3 as long as it's within range of the reanimator every command phase.
Which it will be.
And it has a really good gun now. D6 +1 with blast. strength 14, AP 5 or something like that. Ridiculous. It'll go through armor. It'll go through armor with cover, which is also very important. It's flat damage 5.
I thought it was
Which
4.
is really good. No, the Seraptech is 4. This one is 5.
Oh, that's freaking scary.
And if it's stationary, devastating wounds.
Marvelous. So is this something that we see in every list? Because it sounds to me like its role is to be the thing that you unfortunately have to deal with, which means that you can't focus on killing the Warrior Blob or the Lich Guard.
It's almost every single list. Some lists will not have it because you'll have more destroyers and battle line and Lich Guard. So if I'm bringing 3 Lich Guard units and a warrior and a destroyer unit, I might not bring Doomsday Arcs.
Okay.
But more often than not, you will see at least 2 Doomsday Arcs. Top of A. Definitely top of A.
Kjetil, could you go ahead and please just look up the damage for me? We got a guy in chat saying he's looking at it and it's damage 4, not damage 5. I just want to make sure we clarify that.
I was pretty sure this one was damage 5. Either way, good to bring.
Stupendously good to bring. Either way, if damage 5, damage 4, we still love it.
Let me see. Doomsday Arc. Oh, yeah, it's 4. I can't remember what I looked at that was 5.
Thanks, Netter. Appreciate you bringing that up.
It was something I looked at that was 5.
I believe that. 5's such a lovely number. All right, so now we have the normal Locust Destroyers. These are not the heavies. How do these run?
They are a bit more difficult to bring.
Okay.
In their intended role. I think they serve mostly the same way that I used them before.
Okay.
I think they're decidedly top of B tier.
Fair.
I have built lists that bring these. They're cheap. They're only 30 points per model now. So they're in the same sort of way that the old Scorpex were. Their shooting is kind of interesting. They get a lot of value out of Eternal Conqueror, the Real to Wound. So their points efficiency is actually fairly good. If you bring the Locust Lord as well, they auto win on 5s. So they'll be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1 to hit against the closest target.
I'm just going to take a look at the PPP.
That's a very reliable unit.
So this is the Locust Destroyer, the Gauss Cannon. So this is the PPP. So if you guys don't know what PPP means, it basically means like point spent per point killed. So it's their trading value. A trading value of 2 is generally good. A trading value of 1 is amazing. So as we can see, they have pretty good trading values across all the things that we're looking at. Gene Stealers 1 or less than 1. We've got Marines at 1.2. So yeah, they trade actually really, really well. Custodians 1.4. Lord of Change 1.4. Wow. So yeah, they actually have an amazingly good trading value.
And one of the other things, these are the Scarab replacements because they're only 30 points per model, and you can bring them as ones.
Oh, you can bring them as a solo. Oh, so that is really solid, pretty solid. Okay.
So if you bring them, first thing you'll bring them as is a full unit with a Locust Lord. That is a significant investment, but I think it adds this medium tier shooting that you normally wouldn't have.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. All right, so we're about to do the Satans. Okay, why don't we just do the overall Satan view, and then we can throw the individual characters. We can say whatever we need to say about the individuals. But what does the overall Satan role do now?
All of them are characters with 4 up invul and half damage. They have high toughness, high wounds. They are decidedly the monsters they should be now.
Oh. And they all feel no pains, right?
No.
Oh, okay. That's one of the differences.
That's a specific thing that we'll get to.
All right, so they're all half damage. They're all really hard to kill. They all get to heal. And then let's start with the Nightbringer.
They don't all get to heal. That's the trade-off.
Oh, man. Jeez, I need to stop talking then. I'm just going to let you run with it.
Okay, Nightbringer. Very interesting, medium-ish range shooting. It's like strength 12, AP 2, D6 plus 3. So it's a consistent damage profile. Not that many shots. I believe it's 18-inch range. That's fairly decent. He is very competent in melee against the heavy hitters. It's a high strength, high AP, high damage in melee, 6 attacks, 14 attacks on the sweep with damage 2. That's always nice. He is the monster you want. He doesn't ignore invuls or anything anymore. He has dev wounds on what used to ignore invuls. Makes sense. He's a bit slow. He's a monster. And flying monsters aren't what they used to be.
Yep.
255. I'm not sure if I would bring him. If you like Kjetils and you feel like you want like this counter punchy, counter assaulty unit, I would bring him. But I think he's like a B tier type army.
Okay.
Like he's a B tier dude.
Now the question is, can these guys use the stratagem to resurrect?
It's only infantry characters.
Only infantry characters. Okay. All right. Then we're looking at Mr. Void Dragon X. I looked at some of his rules. He has anti-vehicle 2-up in melee. That's pretty damn good. That's not bad.
He also has anti-vehicle. Yeah, he also has a 2-up anti-vehicle 2-up on his spear.
Oh.
But the spear doesn't have the beam profile anymore.
Okay.
So for some reason, the Void Dragon is less interesting against vehicles at range than the like the Nightbringer. But okay, I guess. But as you said, anti-vehicle 2 with good damage and AP in melee, that's significant.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing you want to bring him against knights, we'll see him
right
a long time before. Yeah, because they are towering. He is not, but he's very tall. So they will see him behind any kind of small ruin. He has a very good ability, though, that if you don't kill him, he can do D3 mortals to the enemy and gain those D3 as wounds.
Oh.
So he is fairly tough to kill if you don't kill him. But if you want to kill him, you will kill him.
Okay, because he doesn't have the feel no pain. He just has the healing if you fail to kill him.
Correct. Like all the Kjetils, the named Kjetils, they're epic heroes, so they can't have enhancements, but they have resurrection protocols instead. If you don't kill them, they will heal 2d3 every command phase.
Aha. So we have a question that says, what about giving the Void Dragon 4-up Feel No Pain as well and need him towards vehicles, like the Knights?
The Void Dragon is an epic hero, and epic heroes cannot have enhancements.
So that has the one that has to go on our next boy, which is the one you have sold me on, the Transcendence. Let's talk about Mr. Transcendence.
I love this guy. I have a lot of history with this guy. Back in like 6th, when you could have like Lords of War and stuff, this guy didn't die. He teleported across the table. He had like a strength D flamer that you put down. Like, he was great. The only difference between back then in 6th edition and now is that he doesn't have the strength D flamer. He teleports across the board instead of advancing. He has the same tough profile as the other Kjetils. He's a character, but he's not an epic hero, so you can bring 3 of him. One of them can have the enhancement, however, that gives him a 4-up Feel No Pain. So to balance that, because I think this is a balance thing. It's not a misstep to forget to give him reanimation protocols. I think that with reanimation protocols, this guy you would see at least one of in every single Necron list.
Well, I think he's already straight up one of the hardest to kill things in the game, right?
Yeah, it took an entire Eldar army to shoot him down, and that was, with Eldrad at the end.
Because he's high toughness, and then he's got significant wounds, and then he is half damage, and he's got the 4-up invuln, and then he has a 4-up Feel No Pain. That is a great recipe for about 5% of the damage that your army has in potential to actually go through.
And because he can do like, I have teleport homers and behind enemy lines, I will put him in the back corner of your deployment zone now. Good luck killing him. I scored 8 points. Your turn.
So I think I can understand why an army might not want to bring him, but the argument for bringing him is pretty high.
He is expensive at 290. He's He's an independent secondary scorer that does shenanigans and disrupts the enemy plans.
Sure.
Right? If they have like a lone operative sitting on a side objective outside of their death ball army, you can take this guy, put him up there, shoot at it, charge it next turn. Because it counts as advancing, so you can't charge after you do it. But he has a decent amount of shots. He will chunk down scouts and such. They won't be able to deal with him, stuff like that.
It sounds very decidedly A for me.
That is top of A tier, I think.
Nice. I'm with you on that. And then we have the last of the Satan shards. We've got Mr. Deceiver himself, the best friend of Orkin and Drazen.
He's not interesting.
No?
No, he's a C tier. He has like medium range precision anti-character 4 dev wounds. He's like, okay. The melee is okay. He has the same like profile of like strength 8, AP 3, damage 3 or something like that.
Does he grant you redeploys or something like that?
Yeah, he has redeploy. That's like his saving grace. That means that I can see some use for him maybe. He's like in between like the death marks and the flayed ones, so that they can be used. I have a hard time seeing like a proper use for him at his price point.
Gotcha.
Because he doesn't give anything by his own. It's decidedly only the redeploy that's interesting.
Okay. So then we're going to move on to the Scorpex, who were the darlings of last edition. And where do they end up in this edition for you?
These are the Ophidians,
Oh, that's the Ophidian. Oh, sorry. Scorpex are coming up next. Well, I said Scorpex, so let's do Scorpex.
Scorpex! I am sad. I love them. I want to bring many of them. I will probably not bring them at all this edition. They are like top of D tier for me. D
tier, not even C with their lord.
Yeah, they are slow. They lost a point of movement. They die now. They don't have -1 to wound anymore. Yeah, they're slow. You can't get them anywhere. It's a problem.
So I will say that I experienced this. We had a Scorpec Lord. He did the Veil and he got lucky and he got the 9-inch charge with a fully loaded unit of the Scorpec destroyers. And they went into me. I was running Custodes, so I fought first and I just annihilated the unit. And that used to not have that wouldn't have happened in the past simply because of the -1 to wound. But when they lose that, it actually does make it quite easy to kill them. If your opponent doesn't have the thing to deal with them and they make that charge, they will kill what they're going for. And so because of that, I think I am going to just slot them right in there at the C tier, because it does seem like they do have a use. But for everything you just said, there also sounds exceptionally real. They don't seem to have the step that they used to.
The problem is that they are 220 points, and when would you bring these guys for 2-inch more movement than a War Scythe Lich Guard unit?
Oh, you make a really good argument.
Because if you bring a Lich Guard unit with War Scythes, that's 190 points. You give them a Lord so that they are movement 6. And that's another 65, right? So that's 155 points over 220. And then you can have a Cryptek with a 5 of Feel No Pain and a Lich Guard, and then you won't die. You'll be 1 point of movement slower, and you'll be roughly as effective in melee.
As much as I hate putting them down there, that's a really convincing argument. Because I'm really glad you elaborated on that, because I'm certain people are gonna be like, no, they really slap now. We should include them, and that doesn't mean that you can't include them in your list. But that was a really good logical explanation for just like why you wouldn't bother.
Yeah, like I would not bring these unless I have my army filled with 3 units of Lich Guards, 3 units of Locust Destroyer, 3 units of Heavy Destroyers, 3 Doomsday Arcs. And at that point, you're probably above 2,000 points with all character support included.
Fair enough. So what about their lithe cat-like cousins, the Ophidians?
They are interesting. Their only downside is that they are cost the same as the Scorpex.
Ooh, so pricey.
They are now toughness 5, which is big. They don't have the same strength, but they still have the plasma sight ability to grant devastating wounds.
Okay, that's cool.
They do interesting things for objective play, because they have one of those abilities that I think you'll see people treasure a lot, and that they can go into reserves at the end of your opponent's turn.
Ah, that's a really good one. I like that.
So they sort of fit in between that flayed one's death mark, kind of like, do you bring them for objective play, do you not, kind of thing. So they are okay on their own. They're nothing that can attach to them. There's no Ophidian Lord or anything like that. So they're a C tier unit that has some use as shenanigans the objective guy.
Okay.
Obviously, I would pay far over double for the Transcendent Catan before I bring an Ophidian squad. But they're not a bad include at all.
Okay.
But it's a bit hard to slot them in at 110.
And then this is the plasma site, right?
Yeah, they are not a unit anymore. They are merely tokens to the Ophidians and Scorpex.
I'll just throw it next to the Ophidian just for perspective.
Yeah, they are not a unit anymore.
Okay. So I think I missed the Wraiths, so let's bring the Wraiths up. Let's do Wraiths real fast.
Wraiths have had a significant fall from grace, I believe. You want to bring them with their ranged weapons now because you pay for it anyways. Because that's the downside of this new world we're in with Age of Sigmar type pointing. If you can bring the options, you will. And their guns aren't bad. They have an interesting pistol with dev wounds. They have an interesting their guns aren't bad. Weapon skill, ballistic skill has something to be said for them. They're toughness 6, 3 up armor, 4 up invul, and they have 3 wounds. That is moderately tanky. There are more tanky profiles, but that's not bad at all. 9-inch move is fast for Necrons. Okay. They are fly and they have beast. That means that they do go through walls.
Nice.
Their special ability Wraith Form is now mortals when you fly over things. That won't happen that much with only 9-inch moves.
Yeah, that's a dumb rule. I wish they kind of get rid of that rule.
And their melee is not impressive.
Okay.
As a speed bump, which is what you used them at before, you yeeted them at the enemy with like pre-game moves, 14-inch move, enemy deployment zone, turn 1 charge, speed bump. Can't use them as that anymore.
Okay.
Now your speed bumps are the warriors themselves, and these guys don't contribute to that. So they have their use. I can see people bringing them because they're interesting, they're cool. I don't see a use for them as it stands right now because of lack of synergies and lack of output. So they're another like C tier, like below the Ophidians, because they don't have that much mission play and stuff. Okay. But they're like a C tier.
All right. So it's like maybe there's a possibility for them, maybe a few points changes here or there, and they can change. But for right
now, I think that when we get separate detachments, there will be a detachment that does things with Canoptech units, and then in that style of detachment, they will 100% see play.
Right on. Okay, so we're starting to get into some of the units that we don't really need to spend a lot of time on. But like, so if any of these pop up and you're like, well, there's just not much to say, you can just say where it goes, and I can accept that. But for the things that are interesting, let's please talk about as much as possible. Now, this first one with the gun on top, this is not the Reanimator. This is the
Doomstalker.
Doomstalker, yeah.
The damage is it's the budget version Doomsday Arc. It's interesting because it's not a big arc. It's a big round base. That means it's easier to hide behind the ruins that are tall. But this is very tall. So towering will see it.
Yep.
Now has an invul, it has an Overwatch strat, it has a good gun, it's a B tier thing. You might bring it if you have them and you don't have Doomsday Arcs. Maybe you need to save 50 points. I'd rather being a Doomsday Arc. Better gun, better rules, better durability. Still good, B tier.
So the argument would be bottom B or top C?
No, I think you would bring this guy before you bring Anarchy here. Definitely.
Okay. Fair enough. Now this is the next one is the Reanimator, and I'm pretty sure this just goes straight up to the S tier
Yep,
because you will
you need
never
it.
see a
You
Necron
will
army without it.
you will always have one. You will probably see two in some lists that need it for redundancy. That depends on your terrain layout. If you play at a place with like not a lot of terrain, you might bring two for redundancy or to spread out the aura. Auras, you only ever benefit from the same aura once, so you can't, get an extra D3 for two. But to spread it out, it's 12 inches. With two, you can cover your entire deployment, maybe the entire board. If you think it's at risk of being shot down with your local terrain, you might bring two. Like it's good. Like you need it. It's solid. It enhances the plan. It makes the current detachment work.
Now, I know this next one thing was actually a really big surprise to both of us because very rarely does GW make our really big, awesome Forge World stuff good. But in this situation, why don't you tell
This
people why you love this Raptic?
this thing costs as much as the Silent King, and it is probably one of the most outputting units we have in the Necron army.
It's a beast.
Its points efficiency with the Singularity Generator is ridiculous.
I'm gonna see if I can pull it up while you're talking.
This guy, the Singularity Generator, is 2d6 shots at strength 10, AP 3, I believe, and flat damage 4. It has dev wounds as well. Like, it doesn't have to be stationary for it. It's towering. It's big, so it'll see over those small ruins. It's toughness 12, 24 wounds, 5 up invul, 3 up armor save. It's a Questoris Knight. We get to bring a Knight with guns that are better than the rapid fire battle cannon, presumably, because it'll have like 46 shots plus blast, and it's 2 guns. This guy might actually kill the warrior blob on his own, right?
So if you
You
guys are
can get
looking on the screen right now, I'm showing you the PPP. This is a massive Forge World model with a very good points spent per points killed ratio, and that is very rare for these massive Forge World models. Um, yeah, it's actually very killy with just its Gauss cannon, which is the second line. If you look at there's in the middle, there's 4 lines. The second line is what we're looking at for PPP. It's actually kind of wild.
yeah, it is strong. Like if you add on the strats, the fact that the sovereign coronal affected, so it'll be hitting on 2s. Maybe you maybe you see a world where you bring 2 of these and the Silent King, so that'll be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. Both of them will have like reroll 1s to wound. There's a lot of shots coming downfield. That's like a lot of points. That's like 1100 points in units, but still.
Yeah.
Bring that, you bring a Sovereign Coronal Hexmark, you bring a Spider, you bring a Reanimator, you bring like 2 units of Lich Guards.
So it itself is healing like crazy, and it's dealing mad damage.
Yeah, that is silly.
And there's one more buff, right? Because when we drop the Spider, which we're gonna talk about in just a moment, we get him a Feel No Pain as well, right?
Yeah, 6 up Feel No Pain,
Ugh.
4 up against mortals.
Ugh.
Like I see myself bringing 1, probably. The only problem is he is big, unwieldy, so the terrain you play on matters a lot here.
Yep.
He is towering, so enemy knights might just put him down. And if you're towering and you play with the right terrain setup, the enemy will see you before you see them, typically.
So where are we dropping him?
He is decidedly A tier. He's like a Doomsday Arc.
That's freaking awesome. I love hearing it. I love hearing about the big Forge World models that everyone wants to use but can't because they suck being good. So that's super, super cool.
Like this guy is like he's like a super supporter for the plan, because he will sit behind your warrior blobs. He won't be touched in melee, but if things get to him in melee, he is very competent.
Yeah.
And he picks off the things that threaten the plan. If he dies in the end, oh well.
And remember, everyone, now your vehicles, when they're tagged in melee, if they have blast weapons, they can still shoot blast out of melee. So even if someone tags them, like say I tag him with some of my custodian terminators or something, he's still going to be blasting the crap out of the rest of my army. That's a big deal.
Yep.
Okay. Let's bring this one backwards just a little bit. This is the spider, I believe. Tomb spider.
That is very much possible. He is very interesting to bring if you have a lot of vehicles. If you face psycho heavy armies, he gives a 4-up feel no pain to the things around you with the gloom prism.
Mhm.
He is a very interesting situational tech piece. On his own, his output isn't that impressive. He has a fairly good amount of shots. That it's 2d6 shots with the particle beamer. That
Yep.
it's strength 6, AP 0, damage 1. It has dev wounds. It has blast. So 2 of them is 4d6 shots with a particle beamer. That's not an insignificant amount of output. With the Sovereign Coronal, they'll be hitting on 2s, I believe. For some reason, they got ballistic skill 3. Fairly durable. Situational tech P.
Their main job is to
I
give that
think.
is to give that feel no pain out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you keep them close to your vehicles. They do an interesting break point when it comes to damage on the Seraptech, for example. They don't repair anymore, sadly. Probably don't need it. It would be a bit much. You bring one. I think you bring one, like a top of C, if you have vehicles.
Top of
Definitely.
C, really. Okay. Right.
Yeah, because you don't bring them if you don't have vehicles, so it's a tech pick, right?
I can
I
see
think
that.
like
That makes
most,
sense.
I think like most things that are like tech picks go in a C tier, bottom B, because you won't bring him without the other. So
I
it's
can see
like,
that.
yeah, like you wouldn't bring him on his own.
Now this is another really badass model. Did it get any better in this edition?
It got worse.
No. All right. What's it called and what does it do?
It's a Triarch Stalker.
Jeez. If he's worse, that
Um,
means he's D because he was very C last army.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's arguments to keep him bottom of C because it takes away light cover. His twin Ghost Destructor, which used to be the same gun that heavy destroyers had, are now a Chinese knockoff heavy destroyer.
That's funny.
His melee output isn't that great. Yeah, I don't see
All right.
a world where we bring this guy.
Gotcha. Now, what are these next two things? I think I think I've seen these on the field once, but it's pretty rare.
This is a Tesseract arc. They
Tesseract arc.
are, yeah, because they are expensive to buy from Forge World. Typically, if you see them, people have bought 3 from well, I won't say it, but there are places to buy these things that are not legitimate. There are places to create them yourselves. You can actually convert them from Catacomb command barges with not a lot of extra pieces, I've seen. That is why you don't see them a lot. Their rules are often in 8th edition. You had 3 of them because they did not die with the old quantum shielding. They were fast. They had good guns. Now they're about where I would put the Doomstalker. They're about the same point as the Doomstalker. They don't have that big damaging gun, but the dual purpose profile is interesting.
Okay.
The main gun is a bit limited for anti-tank, with only being strength 9 now.
Mm-hmm.
I will bring Doomsday arcs before I bring Tesseract arcs.
Okay.
But this is a smaller profile, so it's easier to use.
All right.
It has the same durable hull, but I think it's 4 less wounds in total.
Mm-hmm.
It has a good amount of sidearm guns. It's good at plinking medium heavy infantry. It could be good into light infantry if you give it Tesla guns.
Is there any need for it?
There's no need for it, but it's a good thing. It's like a B tier thing.
All right. So the silver one goes
A B, mid B,
mid
Doom
B.
Stalker-ish, yeah.
All right. And then this next one, which looks like one of the guys from Chronicles of Riddick.
I used these a lot. Now they are expensive for what they are.
Yep.
They move fast at 14, scout and fly. They're mounted, so they don't go through walls or anything. Output is okay. Upgrades are nice, but I would rather have them cheap and not have the upgrades. They're limited to 6 unit size now. They're like a B tier thing. You will see them.
Okay. They're
They don't
fast.
support the.
It's always good to have a
Yeah,
fast unit.
yeah, they're fast. You can put them on objectives turn 1. Maybe you hide them. They're 80 points for 3. I would rather see if I can fit in the Transcendent Catan before I try to fit in like 2 or 3 units of these now, sadly.
Okay. We have this weird like. This is one of the Forge World things. It's got like I don't know.
Yeah, it's a sentry pylon. It's a fortification. I don't even remember if it has towering or not. It's a D tier. There's no consideration for it.
Okay.
It's a fortification. Most people won't bring it. It's expensive in real life money. Doesn't do that much. Forgettable. Don't even think about it. Forget the pylons exist. They're too big.
Okay. What's this thing with the little gun on it? It looks like
Um,
someone decided to make a Desolator Necron Catacomb command barge.
Yeah, that is the Annihilation Barge. They are actually kind of interesting.
Okay.
Their gun has damage 2 now, which is interesting. They have an interesting ability in that they spread mortal wounds around.
Ooh, spread them.
It's on a 5-up, but if you have 3 of them, then you will probably do it. It has native twin linked. You pay a lot for native twin link now. I think that's costed in to the datasheets at like a significant premium.
They price that very highly.
There's no AP on this gun.
Okay.
If it had AP1, I would strongly consider a world where I bring 3 of these.
Mm-hmm.
As it is now, they are interesting, so they're like a C tier. They have use. Their output is interesting. The Mortal Wound Splash is interesting. Don't see a world where I bring them, so like a C tier.
Okay. Then this is another one of the Forge World Pylon type things.
Yeah, ignore. It's the one that's smaller, but with a worse gun. So I don't see why you would.
Then this one is the Convergence of whatever thing. Forget what that was
called. They are actually interesting. Okay. If they weren't 255 points,
that's a lot of points.
I would strongly consider bringing them. If you could bring fortifications, WTC doesn't let you bring fortifications for a good reason. They let you re-roll the reanimation dice of a 1, I believe it is.
Oh, okay.
They make reanimation super reliable, but they're a fortification at 255 points. That doesn't help.
Yeah, and honestly, reanimation's already pretty freaking reliable when you stack the Ghost Arc and your reanimators and everything.
Yeah, you don't need it if it was still 80 points and maybe you could teleport it still. Maybe I would. Now it's a Y pick.
Gotcha. And then it looks like we have the big man himself.
Oh, he's 470 points now. I don't see a world where you bring this guy and not a Seraptech heavy construct. Obviously, you would have to own a Seraptech heavy construct. I think more people own the king than a construct.
Construct might be a little bit.
But if you don't own a construct, I wouldn't even bring the king either.
Okay.
His buffs are nice. He's big. He doesn't have towering, so he can hide behind ruins, except against other towering, which is a big concern. 470 points is far too expensive for his output. He can res his Menhirs now legally. You couldn't do that in 9th. Whoever did it, you were obviously reading the rules in a very liberal manner. He has reanimation protocols. If you lose them in here, you can use Undying Legion to get them in here back. Very hard to kill. Output is meh. Melee is meh.
Let me see if I can pull his chart up here, actually, to kind of look at his. Oh, I don't think we have that one on the sheet. So.
No, it's in the old one, I think. But
okay, gotcha.
The way he lets your warriors and Lich Guard not take any modifiers to movement and such.
That's cool.
That's one of the reasons I would bring him, because that means Thunderfire cannons and such can't hamper the plan in getting to objectives.
Sure.
But at 470 points, that is far too expensive for what he brings to your army. Because the synergies are not that price. He's like a C tier thing. Okay. He has some use in some lists.
Where does
like say you bring
where does he become more interesting? Does he become more interesting, say, at like 400, or does he become more interesting at
At
350?
at around 400, he becomes interesting. I think he should probably be more like 350 or something. Price him at around where Gilliman is, and then we're talking.
Okay.
There's a world where, as I said, if you bring 2 Seraptex and the Silent King, that's kind of interesting.
That'd be a hell of a skew list.
But as it is, I don't think there are many people that own 2 Seraptex unless you play a lot of TTS.
Right.
So it's a theoretical thing. I think it's a C tier thing. With points, he goes up to like B, maybe A. Like the king will take a rest.
And that's good because he put in a lot of work last edition, so maybe he needs a little nap.
He did.
Monolith, it finally gets fly, and fly becomes useless. So
yeah.
sorry, all of my Necron friends. Netter wants me to put the king at the bottom of C, by the way, and he's been really active, so I'm going to put him at the bottom of C for you because I love you, Netter.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like I wouldn't put him on top of C because I don't see a world where you bring him. He's in there somewhere. Like I would bring him before I bring Praetorians, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sad day for the monarchy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I just interrupted us because I sucked. Anyway, the monolith pops up. He gets his fly. Fly sucks now. So what happens with the monolith?
Yes, towering, that helps.
Yep.
The range on his guns are okay. So you can actually use it. He is huge. He is big. He's unwieldy. At least he is a square, which makes it easier to use than the Seraptech.
Sure.
Good guns are good. The ability is good. Teleporting units is always nice. The problem is you won't put the monolith anywhere where you would want to put a teleporting unit, because your entire army will be in your deployment zone, as will the monolith.
Right. So his ability, while awesome, won't ever really be usable.
Yeah, it's one of the few toughness 14 models out there, I believe. I don't think there's many of them.
No.
Even the Tyrants are like 13.
Yeah.
So, very interesting toughness-wise, damage-wise. But I think he can just be ignored for the entire game and just focus on the other things.
All right.
I think he's a C tier. I think he has some use. If you play on a terrain layout where you can actually move him into the center and actually take a good use of his actual, like, surprisingly good melee profile, in addition to all of these things, then I see a use for him. If you play with WTC layout and stuff like that, he becomes almost impossible to use. He's like a C tier thing.
Okay.
Like I would bring him before the king, obviously, as it is right now. But yeah.
Some guy, so Mr. George, thanks for the comment, buddy. He says one of the things he likes about the monolith is he gets to teleport the warriors out of engagements. So I think I could take this one because you don't really need to teleport the warriors out of engagement, because once you're in engage with the warriors, they're never going to die and they're just going to hold the objective anyway. So
yeah, it's
you're right, but you don't really need to do that.
If you take the warriors out of the objective, then that's fine. You gave up the objective. Yeah. You will never get back to that objective. Necrons can't clear objectives effectively. So if you get off the objective, you're never coming back.
Right.
And then you lose.
So then we have these really awesome looking centipede things, which I've never seen on the tabletop. Or will I see them now?
I can never remember if that is the Sentinel or the Stalker. I don't know the difference. They look exactly the same. They have almost the same rules.
No.
You might see. You might see them. They're cheapish monsters at like 115, 130. For either or of them. The cheaper one, which is the Sentinel, is interesting. The gun's fairly alright when you're shooting at objectives. It wants to get close, but it doesn't want to get too close because its melee is bad, so it can't clear objectives on its own.
And so they just run
It
into the same
interact.
problem. Don't they just run into the same problem as the rest of the army that doesn't fit the plan of the Necrons?
Yeah, like yeah, they interact well with objectives. The Sentinel, but both it and the Stalker don't do much for 150 points except exist. You don't need them. Their fourth world, I really fucking wish they were good. They're not. They're D tier. I would not consider these at all for anything.
So now the thank you, Mr. Netter. The Sentinel is the one that hugs the ground, and then the Stalker is the one that's raised from the ground. Thanks for clarifying that.
There we know. They can both occupy the same spot in D tier next to each other, so we don't have to make that distinction.
Beautiful. I think all the flyers. Do any of them make it out of D tier?
They actually do a little bit, I think. There is one consideration for the Doom Scythe if it had hover. I think they both go to D tier simply because they are aircraft, and GW finally decided that if we can't balance them, we'll make them bad. So all aircraft go to D tier.
Fair
There's
enough.
no point in them. Night Scythe has an interesting ability. I don't see a use for it as it is right now. Maybe in a different detachment, who knows?
Okay.
But it should be said, Doom Scythe has really good guns, and if the opponent lets you pick or picks the bad option, which I don't think any good opponent will, it has a surprising amount of output. Still an aircraft, though.
Gotcha. Okay. We are closing in now. I think we've just got the Obelisk and the Tesseract left.
Yeah, you missed the Akenfrights, actually. They are a little bit interesting.
Oh,
If
sure,
they
let's
were
talk about that.
cheaper, I would bring them. At 85, I don't think I would. They are
Okay.
beast, they are fly, they do a little bit of armor rend. If the armor rend was consistent and didn't proc on criticals, like they would be like a solid C to B tier pick.
Okay.
But as it is right now, they go to D tier. If they had like maybe like another wound, were a little bit more or like had more consistent melee, like they lack a little something, and this unit actually becomes good.
Okay.
In an edition where meltaguns don't kill vehicles, you
Sure.
don't bring a missile unit like this anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Meltas are almost just anti-elite infantry now.
Yeah, and they only have one meltagun each, which is not impressive.
So this silver flyer thing, is this a different flyer or is it the same?
It's the Night Shroud is Legends, so
Okay.
that is
So we're not even gonna put it
something
up
to
there
not
then.
consider anymore. Yeah.
So then we have the Obelisk here.
Obelisk was interesting at the end of 9th. I own one because my buddy Amir gave me one for free for some reason. It has a bucket of the strength 7 damage one shots with anti-fly. It's like the one source of movement reduction in the index. It's huge with towering. It's expensive. It has little output. It goes straight to D tier.
Oh. And then the Tesseract Vault.
I
Didn't we peer pressure you into buying one of these at the end of last edition?
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry.
I didn't pay a lot of it because it was with a gift card from a tournament I won. But they were good at the end of 9th. If I had put it together, I would have brought it to an RTT. The Obelisk, that is, not the Vault.
Okay.
The Vault, if it didn't cost as much as it does, I would have brought it. It's huge. Its footprint is huge. It is towering, so it'll see everything, but it'll be seen. It's a lot more durable than the Obelisk and Monolith because it has the 4-up invul as well.
Pretty cool.
Its guns or the Catan powers are only used in the shooting phase. You lose the gun afterwards, so you can't put it near an objective in Overwatch with the really good flamer. There are so many things here that are like, if it just changed like one of them, I would seriously consider bringing it. But as it is right now, its output is not great for the points. It's huge. It's unwieldy. I'm afraid it goes to D tier. I don't see a use for a huge unwieldy model like this with only 24-inch range that will be mostly confined to your own deployment zone because of how unwieldy it is to move.
So it finishes with D for done. That was the tactical tier list for the Necrons, ladies and gentlemen. Kjetil, you are amazing. Do you have any closing comments to to just wrap all of this together? Maybe like one more time, wrap over how that plan works, or I don't know. Anything else that you want to throw in there?
Right. All right. So the way things work in 10th edition, you will always score 20 to 30 secondary points. Whatever you can do to make sure that you score 30 to 40 secondary points is a good thing to do. So that is what you build your list around. Every army can do that. Every army will have units that can do that. So the big differentiator here is how you play on the primary. We have really good primary points as long as we get there, and we need to get there and we need to remain there. That is the plan. And as long as we can pick off things of the enemy, we won't be tabling our opponents. I tabled my opponents, like all of 9th edition, with Scorpex running at them, killing them, durable, all that kind of stuff. And then I scored 100 points even before the Nephilim changes. We don't do that anymore. We don't have the output to it. What we do have is probably the most durable units in the game that are nigh on impossible to remove unless you have some of the more higher output units. What does us in is that we are slow, so you need to be meticulous on your movement. You need to come into the game with a plan. Always make a plan for every primary mission you go into. If you're playing a tournament, you will know the layouts, you will know the missions, you will know when you have the missions. So you need to make a plan for yourself and not the opponent. You need to, where do your unit want to be turn 1 and turn 2? And that is the plan.
So I got a question for you, Mr. Kjetil. I know last year you won the largest tournament we have here in Norway called Invasion, which if you guys are in anywhere in Europe, like you should come for it because it's an amazing tournament and it's going to be 6 rounds this year. I'm not affiliated with them, but it's going to be freaking awesome. It's called Invasion. Look it up. Uh, and you went basically perfect points, right? I think you dropped 3 points over the course of the tournament with your Necrons.
I went 100, 100, 100, 100, and then like 87 or something against Tyranids in the Tyranid Prime.
Right.
And I think if there wasn't the curmudgeon that we won't talk about a lot, I would have gone a perfect 100 there as well. Which is a thing you see for Necrons back in those days.
So knowing that how good Necrons were then, how do you feel about Necrons right now?
I talked to our mutual friend Sondre, and this feels like back then. This feels like a list that feels a lot like the list I brought to Invasion, in a different way. I kill the things that I need to kill. I sit on the objectives. I score. I do my thing. I'm in my element. I'm moisturized. I'm good where I am. Right. I'm in the vibe, and that's how
Vibing
Necrons
hard,
feel right
baby.
now. They feel good.
Nice. Maybe
They
in
are.
the future we
They
could
are.
drop in and do like
Yeah. Like,
one of your list reviews too, so you can kind of talk about
yeah.
like your list.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like Necrons as a whole, they are probably one of the strongest armies right now. They will probably be one of the armies that you see that win super majors going forward.
Sure. Well, any guys, everyone, thank you so much for your attention. Kjetil, thank you for popping in. I really appreciate it. With Kjetil's permission, he's being very gracious, and he actually wrote like a fairly in-depth document that was kind of detailing all of his thoughts on each of these individual units. So if you want to go back and reference that quickly, I'm always down for you leaving a comment on this video and liking it. But if you want a quick reference guide, I'm going to put that in the description, and that should be up in the next 15 minutes after this video is up. Kjetil, thanks so much for joining us today, man. This was awesome, and I actually think we're probably going to end up having you back for the Guard review as well, if that's reasonable.
That's perfectly fine. Yeah, absolutely.
So if you guys have any questions in the comments afterwards, and you think of them later, just come back, comment on them. I'll definitely be going through them all. Kjetil, he will actually be able to come in and comment as well if he so chooses. And I think he probably will, because he generally just is a lovable person who wants to help all of you guys get way better at Warhammer. Until the next video, everyone, thanks so much for your attention. Happy crumpin', and we will see you in the next one.